in 1944, my uncle was convicted of a hate crime. At that time, he lived in the Netherlands with my father. And the Netherlands had been occupied by the Nazis since 1940. My father's favourite brother, Gerard Henskens, was on a train returning from work. It was like any other day, except earlier that day, an unsuccessful attempt had just been made upon the life of Adolf Hitler. And everyone was talking about it. A discussion took place on the train between strangers. My uncle Gerard made some comments which were derogatory of Adolf Hitler. He said of the failed attempt on the life of the dictator that, quote, "you can never kill weeds." When my uncle left the train, he was immediately arrested by a Gestapo agent who was on the train and heard the conversation. During his interrogation and probable torture, my uncle Gerard denied the legitimacy of the occupying German force to detain him and said that Queen Wilhelmina was the head of the sovereign government of the Netherlands. He was not charged with the expression of these challenges to the Nazi authority, but instead he was charged with the more serious crime that occurred on the train of insulting the Führer. Within days, he was prosecuted by a non-independent prosecutor and tried before a non-independent member of the jury, who were both puppets of the Nazi state. He was found guilty of the crime and sentenced to indefinite imprisonment in a concentration camp. Within a year of his arrest, my uncle Gerard, aged only in his mid-20s, would lose his life due to the deprivations of his punishment in German incarceration and concentration camps. He died side by side with the mostly Jewish inhabitants of the concentration camp after they were forced on a long march in the middle of a harsh winter from Hamburg to the Ravensbrück concentration camp, which is just north of Berlin, and which I visited with my father many years later. 80% of the people incarcerated died on that march, and my uncle Gerard survived the march but died after he arrived about 2 weeks later. My uncle Gerard, like my father, was in the Dutch resistance at the time he committed the crime. His brother Leo saved a Jewish family who hid in the attic of his house for 2.5 years. If any of them were caught as a member of the resistance or for harbouring Jews, any one of them would have been killed almost instantly by the Nazis. Each of them risked their lives to help Jews and to fight the most oppressive regime probably in human history. Now, the point from this historical piece of family history is that the unintended consequence of passing these sorts of laws may be that you actually hurt the people who support you or whose values you support. You may actually achieve the very opposite sorts of outcomes than the ones in which you intend. And that was the warning from the New South Wales Law Reform Commission, headed by the former Chief Justice of New South Wales. And I think we need to remember cases like my uncle Gerard of people who are convicted of crimes of using words to incite hatred. Most people would agree with him inciting hatred against Adolf Hitler. But it is impossible to understand all of the ramifications of criminalising incitement of hatred.